Climate change does not impact all children equally. And today we're not only discussing how young people perceive climate change, we are focusing on children growing up in some of the most fragile contexts in our region where conflict, displacement, and environmental shocks intersect. These children are experiencing multiple crises at once, yet their voices, insights, and solutions are often overlooked. And we will change that today. My name is Rita Krisht. I am the Impact and Evidence Advisor at World Vision Middle East and Eastern Europe, and I'm honored to be moderating this critical discussion today. Our session brings together some of the best of humanitarian action and academic research, showcasing evidence-based, child-focused insights from World Vision Middle East, Eastern Europe, and the American University of Beirut. At the heart of this research is an innovative mental model approach, helping us understand how children and youth in fragile settings conceptualize climate change and its impacts. We'll hear from multiple perspectives, including researchers, technical experts, program managers, and young leaders working on the front lines of climate action. So we'll also hear regional findings, but also context-specific realities in Iraq and in Palestine, and the testimony of a youth activist from the West Bank. To access the full report, please scan the QR code on the slides, and we hope it serves as a valuable resource for your programmatic and advocacy efforts. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our opening speaker, Dr. Rami Zourid, professor at the Faculty of Agricultural and Food Sciences at the American University of Beirut, who will open our session. Over to you, Rami.
Rida, thank you so much for moderating today's very important discussion. And thank you all for being present here today. I have to make a small correction, which is that I am in the Faculty of Engineering and Architecture and not in the Faculty of Agriculture and Food Science anymore, but that is a small detail. It's been a pleasure to work with World Vision on this really important topic, and I'll speak more to that in a minute. But before that, I wanted to just try to frame a little bit the context in which this work is happening. I'm sure that many of you, who have chosen to be here, recognize that our region, that I'm going to call generally the Middle East, for the sake of easiness, although this same appellation is itself sometimes problematic, that this region is one of the most severely impacted one by climate change. This is what all the prediction model inform us of. Yet often overlooked in these conversations about the impact of climate change are the direct and profound impact that climate change has on children and young people. Now, those people are undeniably the future of our region and the most vulnerable and probably the most numerous. So we're in a situation in which the most vulnerable, often the most marginalized, are also the most numerous segment of the population. Now, we've used a very unique mental modeling approach that I am sure my colleague Grinwa Hari is going to be telling us more about later, to map out the primary concern of children regarding the daily impacts of climate change in countries that, among other things, have and continue to suffer from the impact of war and occupation, such as Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and Palestine. Now, why are these concerns important? Well, for the reasons that I have elaborated on a little bit at the beginning, but also because such a study allows us to gain critical insight that can guide targeted policies and interventions. And this way, we target through our policies the people who are most affected by climate change, the youth and the children. Now, this was not the only benefit of carrying out this project. Now, this project is an essential example that close collaboration between academia and the humanitarian sector in addressing complex challenges posed by climate change in this case, but very often posed by other complex emergencies such as wars. And I am not going to expand on how important this issue is in our region today. This collaboration was instrumental and needs to be deepened and strengthened. Now, the other part of this is that this collaboration was not only about academia and the humanitarian sector. This particular collaboration also involved actively the affected population, especially the young people and children, in shaping what we call climate smart solutions to the risks we face on a daily basis. These efforts, these joint efforts, do not only empower children and young people to take an active role in climate action, but also contribute to strengthening the long-term sustainability and resilience of our region. I am absolutely thrilled to be joined today by distinguished colleagues from World Vision, from the American University of Beirut, and from other sectors who will take you through the findings of these recent studies. They will also shed light on how this work is contributing to the ongoing efforts within the humanitarian and academic fields to prevent and mitigate the impact of climate change on future generations. Thank you again, and now I'm going to hand it back to you, Rida.
Dr. Rami, thank you so much for these very eloquent and accurate overview and contextual framework for us to work with in our session today. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ghinwa Hari, who is an environmental consultant and mental modeling researcher at the American University of Beirut, and she's going to walk us through the objectives and the methodology of our study. Ghinwa?
Thank you, Rida. So now I will be giving an overview of the study objectives and how it came about, and I will delve into the mental model approach and how it was used in this particular study. So next, please. So the study marks the first time mental models are used to explore climate change impact and perception of children and young people in crisis. So it aims to explore the mental models of children and young people in the Middle East regarding the impact of climate change stress. By analyzing open-ended interviews, we seek to understand how vulnerable youth groups in the most climate-stressed areas of the region perceive climate change hazard and adaptation strategies. So the study focuses on generating multiple mental models to reveal the perspectives of the interviewees. The expected outcomes will enhance our understanding of how children and young people in the Middle East comprehend and respond to climate change, influencing their emotions and future behavior. So understanding these mental models will inform educational and awareness initiatives, tailoring them to communicate the urgency of climate actions effectively. And ultimately, the research aims to shape educational initiatives, programs, advocacy initiatives, and policies that consider the younger generation's perspective, ensuring their voices are heard and their concerns addressed in the fight against climate change. Next, please. So in our study, the main steps are the data collection, the use of textural analysis tool, and the use of a tool that creates visual models. Data collection combines quantitative and qualitative techniques to examine the effects of climate change stress on children and young people. Quantitative data provided an overview of trends and patterns, while qualitative data offered in-depth insights into individuals' experience and perception. So a purposive sampling strategy was employed targeting communities that are highly exposed to climate change. So this ensured that participants were directly affected by environmental challenges. And a participatory approach was used in the data collection process, relying on qualitative techniques to examine the stories of children and young people. Data was collected through face-to-face interviews for participant comfort and flexibility, And this approach accommodated different circumstances and geographical locations, maintaining ethical standards. Then the narratives were imported to WordStat, which is a software tool used for text analysis. So we gather textual data from the unstructured questionnaire, we import data into WordStat, and then we analyze the data using WordStat's analytical tools to identify themes, keywords, patterns, word frequencies, and clustering. Then we introduce the results into the mental modeler. Mental Modeler is a software tool designed for participatory modeling and scenario analysis. It allows us to create visual models that represent complex systems. So we input the data coming from WordStat. This will help us identify the main issues, the different nodes, and the links between them. Then we obtained a representation of mental maps that we change according to the narratives of children and young people. Next, please. As for the study area, so the Middle East stands out as one of the most vulnerable regions to the impact of climate change, mainly due to a convergence of environmental, geographical, and socioeconomic factors. The region is already one of the most water-stressed areas globally, and climate change is set to make this situation even worse. So the already vulnerable agricultural sector is further weakened, resulting in food insecurity, loss of livelihood, and rural to urban migration. Climate-induced displacement is a growing concern also in the Middle East. As environmental conditions deteriorate and access to basic resources become increasingly challenging, people are forced to leave their homes in search of more welcoming areas. And in the context of conflicts that already affect the Middle East, climate change serves as a threat multiplier. So the study was applied on 5 sites of the MENA region that are facing significant challenges due to climate change and ongoing conflicts: Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and the West Bank. In Lebanon, Akkar faces inconsistent weather patterns and droughts that have disrupted traditional farming, resulting in food insecurity and water scarcity. Syria experiences extreme weather events causing water scarcity and agricultural disruptions. In Jordan, the Azra refugee camp, which is home to many Syrian refugees, faces rising temperature and inconsistent weather patterns, causing water scarcity and food insecurity. In Iraq, the Nineveh region faces changing weather patterns and upstream dam projects that also affect water availability. The West Bank deals with fluctuating rainfall, water management issues, and socioeconomic impacts affecting agriculture and the daily life. And demographically, these regions show diversity in age, gender, socioeconomic characteristics, with significant refugees and displaced populations. So we gathered data through key informant interviews of children and young people in each of these areas. And in total, we gathered 76 KII from May till June 2023. Next, please. So our main focus is mental models. Mental models are cognitive representations that help us understand how people make decisions. So they help us understand the ways of the mind. They are shaped by personal experience, perception, and observation. And this diagram illustrates a decision-making process influenced by several input factors, which are initially received and categorized into subcategories. These factors are processed within a mental model represented by a human head, where cognitive functions interpret the input. The brain then analyzes the information based on different criteria, resulting in potential outcomes that inform a final reaction or decision, highlighting the impact of internal processes on decision-making. So when people face real-world problems, they tend to rely on their perception, observation, and previous experience to make decisions based on certain utility function in their mind to maximize while still being risk-averse. So the decisions are then used as the basis for iterative stakeholder consultations to investigate the mental models. So we obtained 4 mental models for each country, one for the tangible repercussions of climate change and another for the mental health repercussions for children and for young people, making them a total of 20 mental models that was facilitated by the use of the textual analysis tool and the mental modeler tool.
Dina, thank you so much for so clearly and systematically mapping out this innovative methodology that we've used in our study. Now, let's move on to Dr. Aaron Tanner, our Environmental Stewardship and Climate Adaptation Advisor at World Vision Middle East and Eastern Europe, And Aaron's going to guide us through the outcomes of the study and what it means for us at World Vision in terms of our practice in regards to environmental programming. Over to you, Aaron.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Ginwa. Next slide, please. So it's useful for us to now look at what do these mental models really look like. As Ginwa rightly articulated, we've done this in 5 countries for children and youth, and there are 2 mental model outputs per each cohort within each country. So you can see on the above image that you will see here, that the above model depicts psychological distress and the experiences and the risks of that cohort. And the model below articulates the experiences and their perceived threat to livelihood, each of which that they connect to climate change. Next slide, please. Great. So we can use this understanding, these models that we've outputted, to reveal commonality between all the countries. We can see across all the countries and all age groups the following concerns: that all subjects revealed common climate stressors, which included air pollution, extreme heat, droughts, and water resources concerns. And that will result in emotional responses. And those were commonly felt with fear of natural disasters, sadness, shame, worry about diseases, and safety concerns. And common also to all these countries and cohorts was the fact that climate change seemed to be having a significant effect on education. That means that education was subject to regular disruptions due to climate events either affecting directly their school infrastructure, their home, or their community infrastructure that inhibited their attendance and regular education sessions. And so that was also a concern. And also then livelihoods were affected. So families or individual livelihoods were negatively affected by climate events. These were common to all the countries we found. But also common and interesting was their response was also, shared. And that was that they wanted to be engaged stakeholders, children and youth, addressing and helping mitigate their local concerns. And they wanted to do that with their community. So kind of community engaged action. And so through this study, we managed to see commonalities about how children and youth are affected, and also about how they might want to respond to this issue. Next slide, please. Thank you. And of course, naturally, not only do we see commonality, but we saw difference. And I think Ginwa covered this a little bit already. There was a difference in the way in which different climate change effects were affecting different countries, and indeed, therefore, and that the cohort within that country had a different context as well, not just a climate change context, but their own individual context as a group. So, for example, we'd have Syria, who had significant concerns about forced displacement with related food vulnerabilities. So this cohort is a population which were highly dependent on cash and voucher programming and had limited access to local land to farm. And so naturally, certain kind of that condition leads to an extended concern about food related vulnerability. Next slide, please. So let's go a little bit deeper into what these mental models look like. Here we have one for Lebanon and children aged 8 to 17. And you can see there on the right, we've got psychological distresses mentioned. And you can see the emotions that they're suffering from in response to climate change. That's anxiety, sadness, fear, helplessness, anger, hurt, shame, etc. And then we also have on the left here the violence they're experiencing at an individual level, at a household level, or at a community level. Okay, so these mental models go in detail as to how these children are mapping out their experiences. And this is really important because as we build a strong understanding of their experience and how they perceive them, we can then start to think about programmatically what should be the appropriate response given these conditions that children are enduring. And we can ask ourselves, are we addressing the support needs of these children in Lebanon in the way that they need? And what more do we need to dial up for future programming so that we might better support these children? So each mental model is accompanied by, if you see in the top hand left-hand corner, a programmatic response. So what is the kind of programming we would expect to see to help manage these children, help support these children? Next slide, please. While thinking about mental models, it's also important to remember this is really about a dialogue of children. Okay, so the mental model might be an 11-year-old girl from Syria stating that all girls and women face violence, male oppression, or are bearing responsibilities beyond their capacity. Or a 13-year-old boy from Jordan clearly expressing the fact that there's a lack of community awareness and capacity of his local community to deal or address climate change. Okay, so next slide, please. So at World Vision, we're using these narratives and then mental models of children to address programming and trying to find the right programming response. Okay, so we want that in 3 to 5 years, children that with similar children in similar contexts having an entirely different mental model that we can capture. And we do this by advising on different programmatic responses. So we have articulated, you've got 4 on this slide and 4 on the next, are programmatic responses that we think of kind of regionally. One is to support collective action to address localized climate vulnerabilities. 2 is to empower children and youth engagement in decision-making. And 3 is to address the abuse and neglect and trauma that they are inevitably facing. So that means enhancing mental health and social protection services. And 4 is we want to ensure that the primary services, utilities, health, etc., are climate proof. If we could have the next slide, please. Okay, also food and security came up a lot. So we want to address food security and nutrition, make sure we're supporting people with climate smart, resilient agriculture practices. The other is number 7 is to look at climate resilient livelihoods. How can we make sure that children and youth are better prepared for the right kind of activities that their livelihood is climate proof essentially, and supporting their environment for a better, brighter future. Because we know that climate events are affecting these communities, we need to address disaster risk reduction programming, making sure that they're well prepared for the events that we can inevitably see. And also, similarly, address the ecosystem services that they're dependent on, so making them less vulnerable to climate hazards. And finally, number 10 is that we need to look at the policies and ensure that we advocate for the policies that support the above programmatic responses in all the countries that we work in. So that's how we look at it regionally, but it's more interesting to see how each country addresses these issues. So I will now pass you over. Next, we will hear from Kahil Hamad of the Iraq office, and followed that by Sahaya Khoury of the Jerusalem West Bank Gaza office. And they're going to share with you how they're at a country level are responding and addressing the mental models of the children and the youth in their context.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Khalil.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Aaron. Thank you, Ghida. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I like to start with providing a brief overview just to refresh our understanding about the current climate crisis in Iraq. Iraq is characterized as one of the top countries vulnerable to climate change, where children are suffering the most. The country faces severe drought and water scarcity, displaced about 140,000 people from urban area to a rural area. They have lost their livelihood, and this also resulted in increasing child labor and child marriage. Iraq has chronic water quality issue. And we have areas where waterborne diseases is prevalent. and around 50% of the schools lack access to clean water. And in Iraq, we have about 100 to 120 days of storms annually, and 50 to 70 days of extreme heat weather. This will disrupt daily life, education, and children's outdoor activities. According to the World Vision's climate study, nearly 93% of the children have reported significant anxiety about climate change, and 72% of children facing challenges in accessing nutritious food, while 94% of children have reduced access to clean water. The study also shows that 70% of the children believe that girls' education is more impacted than boys' education. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, this diagram shows the findings of the mental model study conducted in Iraq, Nainawa Governorate. This study shows how children's mental model shape their understanding to the climate change. It shows how different crises, including conflict and civil unrest, have influenced the way children react and view the climate change. The diagram illustrates the main tangible consequences of the climate change based on the mental model of the children in Nainawa Governorate. This generation, the majority of this generation used to live in emergency settings, specifically in IDP campus and in informal settlements, where access to basic services, including water, sanitation, education, health, and food, were very, very limited. And this deeply impacted their concerns that have been highlighted in this study. If you look at the main concerns raised by the children in this studies, which is highlighted in orange circles, they are more about the disruption to education, poor education, health problems, access to water and food security, and poor sanitation. These are very strongly connected with their past experience. And emotionally, the study shows that the children's experience fear, anxiety, and frustration over natural disasters and climate change. Next slide, please. World Vision Iraq has been implementing several key initiatives and approaches to address the concerns of the children have been raised in this study. So to address the concern around food security and access to water, specifically for agricultural purpose, World Vision is empowering communities to adopt climate smart agriculture, aiming to improve productivities and to adapt to the water scarcity and drought through using efficient water use technologies and through planting crops which are resilient to the drought and heat waves. We are also implementing community-based disaster risk reduction to enhance the adaptive capacity of the communities to adverse impacts of the climate change. Next slide, please. Another concern that been raised by the children was health problems, specifically respiratory diseases, which is exacerbated by the dust storms and the air pollutions. So to address these concerns, so we are implementing community-based climate education and awareness programming. And we are implementing this program at the community level and also in schools. We are also implementing regreening initiatives in schools through involvement of the school teachers and children as well. We are also engaging children in reviving World Environmental Day and World Water Day. So aiming to raise their awareness about the water conservation, water scarcity, and environmental protection. Next slide, please. Poor sanitation and poor education are among the main concerns raised by the children. To address these concerns, so World Vision is implementing integrated WASH program in schools, and we are providing inclusive WASH facility, which is a child disability and female WASH facilities in schools. We are also engaging children in decision-making processes, specifically while we are designing WASH facilities in schools. Next slide, please. We are also implementing child-focused hygiene promotion approach of WASH Up program, which is mainly focusing on the water conservation, environmental hygiene, and personal hygiene. We are also establishing WASH clubs and environmental committees in schools to foster engagement of the school children in the environmental and WASH issues. We are also conducting periodic cleaning campaigns through involvement of the children in schools to keep the school environment clean. Next slide, please. Yeah. To address access to water, we are implementing water conservation approach in the communities and in schools. We are also providing water purification products, specifically in areas with critical water quality issues and in areas where waterborne diseases are prevalent. Next slide, please. Finally, we are investing in renewable energy solutions, specifically in schools, to strengthen education system and to enhance access to the facilities in schools and to reduce air and noise pollution caused by generators. So we have replaced generators with the solar power system. Next slide. Finally, I would like to thank our partners and our donors who supported us in implementing these initiatives to address the children's concerns that have been highlighted in this climate study. Thank you. It's over.
Khalil, thank you so much for this incredible overview and for being able to link a lot of our findings from the study and being able to take us to these mental models and bring these realities home to us in this session. Thank you so much, Khalil Hamad, World Vision Iraq Operations Manager. Next, we'll move on to Tahir Houdi from our Palestine team. And he is the Green Palestine and Climate Nutrition Project Coordinator at World Vision Jerusalem West Bank Gaza office. Over to you, Tahir.
Okay. Thank you, Rida. Thank you, everyone, and hello. So let us start with next slide, please. Okay, first I would like to introduce our organization, World Vision Jerusalem West Bank Gaza. We are like a community-based organization working in around 124 communities across the West Bank. So this representing like around 23.6% of the total communities in the area. This makes us like the largest international NGOs in terms of geographical coverage in the occupied Palestinian territory. So our approach to addressing climate change like operates in three main levels, starting from the school levels, where as a child-focused organization, we work directly with students, eco clubs, health committee, disaster risk reduction committees, teachers at school level, when we build their resilience and raise their awareness directly at schools. Then for the community level, we work directly with the community members, including caregivers, herders, small-scale farmers, other beneficiaries, and stakeholders, where we promote sustainable practice at community level and strengthen the local capacity and participation of community members. At the national levels, we work directly with governmental bodies, with like international and local NGOs in order like to advocate for changes or for the policy influence. As you can see from the map of the West Bank, this is our current operational area in the West Bank, and also it shows like the areas that were selected to present this West Bank in this research. We are talking about areas that suffers from flooding due to the heavy rainfall and also suffering from desertification, land degradation due to drought, overgrazing, like the communities located in southeast of West Bank. So next slide, please. It's also mentioned, as mentioned by other colleagues, children also in the West Bank aged from 8 to 17 years are vulnerable to climate change. They are witnessed like the extreme heat, drought, water scarcity due to several reasons, mainly to lack of control or even no control over our natural resources, and also limited access to like drinking water and other resources. Also, children are facing economic and social stress. As you can see from the mental model, like the children witness poor education due to the infrastructure that we have in some communities, which also affect their attendance to schools, mainly during heat waves or during storms. And this is related to infrastructure of the schools themselves. Also, they are facing poor sanitation, and this is related to the available wash facilities at schools or even at communities in some cases. And this make, as mentioned by Dr. Rami, most of the children, they feel worry and other emotional issues that they are facing because of these like challenges they are facing. Also, we have like, as I mentioned, issues related to food security. We have food insecurity and also water scarcity. And also this is related to the quality and also affect the quantity of water, that mainly the drinking water in some areas, because people or children need like to move to bring water, mainly the people who have like herders family, etc. And also these affect the children in the West Bank. Now, based on the research, and as mentioned by Dr. Aaron and other colleagues, important and urgent action should be taken, mainly on focusing on strengthening like climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, improve the wash facility, which is the main recommendation of this research, and also food security. We should focus on child protection, participation, and education. And now in the next slides, I will give you some examples of our work related to these recommendations. So next slide, please. Okay. I will share with you some example of some project that we already finished, and also some other ongoing project. Starting at school level, one of the recommendations from this research was to enhance the environmental education curriculum by integrating like new models, mainly on climate change and environmental awareness. The project promoting environmentally friendly practices and mainly green school in Palestine, this respond to this recommendation. This project mainly focused on integrating the green school concept in 37 governmental schools located in the most vulnerable areas in the West Bank. In these 37 schools, we worked directly with the eco clubs, supported them with the training capacity building needed, and also supporting them in implementing what we call the 3R initiative, reduce, recycle, and reuse initiative at schools, at community levels, as a way like to enhance the education, to promote like environmental, healthy, and sustainable practices. In this project also, we focused in supporting like 22 schools by installing on-grid solar energy system on the roof. This in order to generate clean energy, to reduce the electricity bills that the Ministry of Education pays on behalf of these schools. And you know, on-grid system means that the saving from this system goes directly to the connected grid and reduce also the other schools' electricity bills. And this is not only related to installing solar energy, it's like a tools for to enhance the education for students on how to maintain, understand the system, and how to use it. As you can see in the orange, at the end of the project evaluation, we succeeded when like 88 of students applied the 3RS technical at their homes. It's not only at school, we are talking about their homes, and 80 of them educated others, like the friends, family members, about the benefits of this, and 89 of students, they are expressed willingness to continue as Eco Club members in their schools and communities. So next one, please. So building on the previous project, And as a main recommendation on implementing comprehensive disaster preparedness and response programs, this project came to answer this or to achieve this main recommendation. In this project, we are building the resilience and ensuring protective both hygiene, in-wash, and DRR system at schools. In this project, we work directly with 50 governmental schools located in vulnerable areas. We supported the schools mainly in how to identify the risk that the communities they are facing or the schools. I am here talking about man-made risk and natural risk. We supported them to update their safety plans, train teacher and student, and mainly health committees, the body that tackle DRR and WASH issue at schools, on how like to update these safety plans to be updated. In addition, we support this with our partnership with the Palestinian Civil Defense in conducting like DRR simulation in these schools. In addition to this, we also supported the schools directly with improving their WASH facilities by rehabilitation, increasing the number of units based on the regulation of the Ministry of Education. We also supported the health committee and students to run hygiene awareness campaigns. Each school selected the campaign that they need, like hand washing day, theater shows, like the school's radio, other campaigns that I don't have today the opportunity to present most of them. So this project like mainly highlighted this, and also the unique or the added value of this project, we succeeded to introduce like what we call interactive DRR and WASH materials, new materials, mainly the games. Some games on how to identify risk at schools, you know, the snake and ladder games or the DRR games we developed. And also we didn't focus only at school levels. We also like conducted multimedia campaigns at communities level, using radio, TV spots, with our partnership with the Ministry of Education and Civil Defense to raise awareness, because the baseline of this project showed it's clearly that most of the household, though they don't even have a safety plan, like how to do or how to deal with emergency. So this was our focus in the multimedia campaign. So next slide, please. This is what I would like to share with you. At the end of the project, one of the students mentioned it clearly that he said, I clearly remember that the day my younger brother nearly choked on a small object. My mother couldn't help, but thanks to my first aid training, I knew what to do. I was able to remove the object and save his life. It was like a terrifying moment, but I am grateful for the knowledge to act quickly. So this is like one of the examples that I would like to share and the impact of this project. So next slide, please. Okay, now I will be sharing two examples at community level. As mentioned by other colleagues, it's important to focus about the smart agriculture techniques. So currently we are implementing the Towards Climate Change Action with Nutrition Co-Benefit for vulnerable families and in area B and C. We are working with 7 CBOs. They will implement like smart agriculture techniques, climate adaptation initiative, like hydroponic, aquaponic, etc. They will market their products for the vulnerable household or the poorest household in their communities. We'll provide them with the support needed, and also we will focus on implementing and distributing eco-friendly IEC materials for them. So this is also another example. Next slide, please. Okay, I will end with this project. It's also community as an active project, community level. We found that imagine that only 7.7 of the participants in the climate change research, they believe that they reside in an area that is clean. So focusing on cleaning or these practices will support our strategy or the promote sustainable practices. So the Green Palestine, from its name, the promoting a sustainable environment for many children, families, and communities in areas B and C, come to tackle these issues. Currently, we are working also with another important body that we created in this project and established, the community-based green community in each community. We supported them with the knowledge needed. They are representatives, volunteers. We have herders, farmers, we have children, private sector volunteers. So we provided them with the training and capacity building needed in how to identify risk in their communities. And based on the risk and needs, they submitted to us like what we call community campaigns that support gender and age that we will start to support and implement, and also we'll implement a community-based innovative initiative, safe play area. We are talking hydroponic, depend on the needs of each community, and there will be a lot of interactive awareness activities. This photos, for example, like we are hosting in this community a natural history mobile museum that visiting the communities and raise awareness about biodiversity. So last one, please. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank our donor, the German Corporation, the BMZ, which make it real to support these four projects. Our governmental body, the Ministry of Education, Agriculture, Health, Environment Quality Authority, and the Palestinian Energy and Natural Resource Authority, and also our local NGOs. And here I would like to mention that we are not also working with our local NGOs, we are supporting them in updating policy and in capacity building in several domains. So this is from my side. Thank you, Rida.
Thank you so much, Sahid. It's really incredible to see many of the child-focused program activities that you've been able to implement in the Palestine context as well as the Iraq context, as we heard from Khalil. Really incredible work, and good to see that we're involving communities, the most vulnerable children and young people at every step of the decision-making process. I'm now very happy to introduce our young speaker for this event, who is also joining us from Palestine. Bushra is a young climate advocate in the West Bank. He is also the coordinator of the Green Communities project we just heard from Fahid about. It's hosted by World Vision in the West Bank. Bushra will be speaking in Arabic, but we will be adding the English translation of her intervention into the chat box for those who require translation. Bushra, thank you so much for being with us today and agreeing to share your experiences with us. Over to you.
شكرا لك غيداء. مرحبا جميعا. أعيش في قرية ريفية صغيرة في غرب الضفة الغربية، حيث يعتمد الناس بشكل أساسي على زراعة الحبوب والزيتون والفواكه. في مجتمعنا رأينا تأثيرات التغير المناخي، محاصيلنا تقل وأحيانا تفشل تماما. مع تفاقم مشكلات مثل سوء الصرف الصحي وانعدام الأمن الغذائي وشح المياه والضغوط الاقتصادية، يصبح دور الشباب في إيجاد الحلول أكثر أهمية. ومن بين الاستثمار في المشاريع الخضراء المستدامة يمكن أن يخلق المزيد من الفرص الاقتصادية، فرص العمل، ويقلل الفجوات الاجتماعية، يساعد في بناء مستقبل أفضل. يوصل البحث في فلسطين بإنشاء مجالس شبابية لضمان أن يكون للشباب صوتا في القرارات المتعلقة بالتغير المناخي. لهذا السبب أنا سعيدة بوجودي هنا لمشاركة تجربتي في المشروع فلسطين الخضراء، الذي أتاح لي فرصة للمشاركة في المبادرات البيئية المستدامة داخل قريتي. يساعد مشروع فلسطين الخضراء القرى مثل قريتي على مواجهة تحديات التغير المناخي والمشاكل البيئية. يركز المشروع على 40 تجمعاً مهمشة في 6 محافظات في الضفة الغربية، ولتنفيذ ذلك أنشأ المشروع لجنة خضراء في كل قرية. كأعضاء عندما سمعت عنها عندما سمعت عن هذه الفرصة أردت أن أكون جزءاً من التغيير وانضممت إلى اللجنة الخضراء في قريتي، وبعد ذلك اختارني زملائي كمنسقة للجنة القرية، مما منحني مسؤولية أكبر في تنسيق الأنشطة المشروع داخل القرية. كأعضاء في اللجنة الخضراء نعمل معاً كفريق، نجتمع بانتظام لوضع خطط عمل لتحسين البيئة في قريتنا. ما يميز لجنتنا هو أنها تضم أشخاص من جميع الأعمار، شباباً وكباراً، رجالاً ونساء وأطفالاً، مما يثري أفكارنا واقتراحاتنا ولكل عضو في اللجنة دور محدد مثل تنظيم الفعاليات والتواصل مع المجتمع المحلي أو العمل مع السلطات المحلية في القرى والخارجها. مع انطلاق المشروع قامت مؤسسة الرؤية العالمية ومركز عمل معا التنموي تدريبنا على كيفية تقييم المخاطر البيئية وتأثيرها على التغير المناخي سواء كانت طبيعية أو ناتجة عن الإنسان. كما تعلمنا كيفية وضع خطط تدخل لمعالجة هذه المخاطر. كان التدريب مفيدا جدا. بصفتي منسقا قمت بمشاركة المعرفة مع أعضاء اللجنة الآخرين وأفراد المجتمع الذين لم يتمكنوا من حضور التدريب. بعد التدريب قمنا بمسح بيئي لقريتنا وحددنا المشكلات البيئية الرئيسية مثل مخلفات المصانع وتراكم النفايات وإزالة الغابات وندرة المساحات الخضراء. ثم ناقشنا الحلول الممكنة وكيفية تقليل المخاطر بمساعدة مشروع ودعمه. في قريتنا هناك محطة معالجة مياه غير مستغلة بالكامل. فكرتنا بدعم من المشروع هي إنشاء مشروع بيئي مجتمعي من خلال إقامة مشتل زراعي ستستخدم النباتات المياه المعالجة للري. سنقوم بتوزيع الأشجار لزيادة المساحات الخضراء في مجتمعنا والمناطق المجاورة. لرفع مستوى الوعي البيئي قمنا بالتخطيط لنشاطين للأطفال ومقدمي الرعاية. الأول يتعلق بإدارة النفايات وإعادة التدوير للحد من التلوث، حيث سننظم حملات تنظيف ونضيف صناديق إضافية لجمع الأوراق وإعادة تدويرها ورفع الوعي من خلال الاجتماعات. أما النشاط الثاني فسيكون زراعة الأشجار في مناطق مختلفة من المجتمع لزيادة المساحات الخضراء وتقليل التلوث وتحسين البيئة للجميع. سنبدأ بتنفيذ هذه المبادرات قريبا بمشاركة واسعة من المجتمع. وأخيرا لا يقتصر المشروع فلسطين الخضراء على البيئة فحسب، بل هو أيضا تجربة تعليمية وحياتية تغير مفهومنا للمخاطر وتساعد مجتمعنا على التعاون من أجل مستقبل أكثر اخضرارا واستدامة. فالمشاريع البيئية لا تحسن الطبيعة فقط، بل تساهم أيضا في حل المشكلات الاقتصادية والاجتماعية والصحية الناتجة عن التغير المناخي. نحن الشباب لنا دور أساسي في بناء مستقبل أكثر أمانا واستدامة للجميع. ما زالنا أمامنا المزيد من العمل في هذا المشروع. أنا أؤمن بأنه من خلال الجهود المستمرة والتعاون يمكننا إحداث تغيير حقيقي. لذا أود أن أشكر المانحين على دعمهم. التغيير يبدأ بنا وبالعمل معا. يمكننا بناء مستقبل أفضل. شكرا لكم.
Thank you so much, Bushra, for this incredibly powerful testimony. And I invite those of us who require translation to really, and those of us who even don't, to really look through Bushra's testimony, as it gives you a clear picture of the climate change realities and the readiness and the bravery and leadership demonstrated by our young leaders leading green community projects in Palestine. Thank you so much, Bushra, for allowing us to hear from you today. It is a privilege. Again, thank you, colleagues, for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed our session today, and we can now move on to our Q&A. So I'd like to invite those of us who have questions across for our panelists. As you recall, we've heard from Ghinwa Harit on the methodology. We've heard from Aaron Tanner on the programmatic recommendations and the outcomes of the study as they relate to environmental programming at World Vision. And then we heard specific examples from Iraq, from Khalil, as well as Sahir in Palestine, and now Bushra, our young advocate who is leading efforts in the Green Communities Project. So please, I invite you to feel free to ask your questions within the chat. Otherwise, if you'd allow me, I would love to start off maybe with a question for Khalil. You've worked on involving young people and children at every level of the decision-making process when implementing environmental programmatic activities in Iraq, but I'd love to know what was most surprising or unexpected, some unexpected developments that you have come across while you were implementing these programs, and just hearing from how you've been involving them and hearing their point of view on climate change would be great.
Thank you so much, Rida. Actually, we are involving children at different levels, specifically in schools. So we are during the design of the water facilities, sanitation and hygiene facilities. So we are conducting focus group discussions with the school children to have their voice raised and to have their voice to have their say in the design of these facilities in terms of the location. Specifically, we are also providing some female-friendly wash facilities like MHM facilities. So we are usually involving school girls for the locations and on the privacy, so as they can frequently use these facilities. And in schools, we are also involving the children in environmental clubs and wash clubs. So we are also providing them with the training on, maintaining the school environment clean, and also on small-scale repairs in schools, by the way. And they are also monitoring the wash facilities in schools. We have other activities like water conservation approach. We are involving them in some activities and events like in art classes. So there will be competition among the school children on developing graphics and messages on the water conservation. And in the past, we are also implemented children-led initiatives when it comes to the water conservation. So we are involving them to visit the households and also to visit the emergent settings like IDP campus, so as to raise some or to deliver some awareness messages about water conservation.
Thank you so much, Sahid. I have a question for Ghinwa from the chat. Denise is asking, could there be more that we can say about the data collection tools, why they were thought to be the most suited, and were there others that were considered before we went ahead with this approach? Over to you, Ghinwa.
I didn't get it, Rita. Can you please?
Sure. Denise is asking if we can say a little bit more about the data collection tools and the considerations that went into specifically choosing and going ahead with this child-focused methodology.
Yes. So for the data collection, we mainly start by choosing the targeted population that should be the most affected by the environmental challenges and that are the most vulnerable, if we can say that. This is why we use a purposive sampling strategy, and then we use a participatory approach to be able to show more the stories of the interviewees. So it's an open-ended questionnaire that targets mainly the stories of the interviewees. Because we are targeting mental models. So mental models relies on textural analysis, and textural analysis that comes from open-ended and stories. So this is why we try mainly as a first step to choose the targeted people, to choose our sampling, not to choose random sampling. So it's a purposive sampling. And then we go in the process of the interviews through open-ended interviews to collect mainly the stories and then analyze the stories afterwards.
Benoit, thank you so much. That's very clear, and thank you so much for mentioning that participatory approach that included vignettes. Thank you so much. We have another question, and I'll pose that maybe to any panelists that would like to respond, but mostly from World Vision, of course, as it's posed to us. How do mental models account for a diversity of perspectives and needs amongst children, and specifically how are gender inclusion and intersectionality reflected in both the research approach and in the outcome reported? Erin, maybe, I don't know if you'd like to say a little bit about how our programming takes into account social inclusion, as well as this participatory approach in terms of approaching children 8 to 17, as well as youth 18 to 24, with specific approaches geared and tailored towards them, but also programmatic recommendations that include them and include their voices. I'm afraid you're on mute, but if we have
Sorry, was
any...
that me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yes, the cohorts that we chose were gender balanced, and also we tried to capture the experience of females, and that we because that came out as a common cause, that there was a gender concern, and I think it was mentioned previously by Khalil that in Iraq there was if we reflect, if you go deeply into the report, you can see how the different experiences of boys and girls are reflected, and reflections of boys on how women are more vulnerable to violence and abuse at various community areas, for example, water collection points, or when they're undertaking community chores, and also where there might be a difference in expectations in terms of coping strategies. For example, where boys might be expected to leave school in order to attend work to increase the income of the family, or girls otherwise as well. So all of that is captured if you look in the detail of the report, and the sample did spread to try and have a nice even representation of male and female views with regards to that.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I'm afraid I had missed a question in the chat from Joanne, so let me ask that to Sahid, if that's okay. Is WASH challenged in contexts of water scarcity and the need to conserve for drinking water? What is the message for schools and children? Over to you, Sahid.
Okay, thank you. So I think here we need to focus on two main issues. It's not only rehabilitation or improvement the water or the wash facilities at school, and this is what we did in one of the projects, but it's mainly focused on how to include children, and I'm talking here about health committee and other students in this process, including them, how they can be included, like to implement related like hygiene or sanitation campaigns at school level in orders, because what the major challenge that we faced maintaining the facilities after the project. So including children in the process, this supported us a lot in making them always clean, and how to use them. And also we found, like, from the baseline, maybe some students, they don't wash their hands after using the sanitary, etc. So this was the focus of the project. And some girls, for example, they mentioned, and we received these messages a lot, some girls, they don't use their sanitary units because it is mixed school. They don't have like enough sanitary units mainly for girls. So that's why we focus in increasing the number and having the numbers mainly for people with disabilities, children with disabilities, and also for girls. So it's always, it's like a circle. You need to hear from children, and based on this, you need to modify the project activities to respond to these challenges. Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Sahid, for elaborating on this. And just remind us too, that striking finding that you shared, 7.7% only had believed that their surroundings are clean. So obviously there's a lot of work to do, and it's very clear that you are doing an incredible job. Thank you so much. And to all our panelists and all our audience, thank you for being with us today. And I invite you again to look through the report, our links, as well as QR codes that have been shared. And we hope that you've enjoyed this webinar, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.